This is We Are What We Overcome. What you're about to hear are the ramblings and reflections of three ordinary people, drawing on their own personal and occasionally professional experiences. These conversations are unprepared, subjective, and should not be taken as medical advice or instruction. Anyone seeking help should always carry out their own research, or better yet, speak to a professional about their circumstances.
Aha.
Great.
There we go. All right. You can release your video. I don't know what that means. Anyway, all right. We all good? Ready to rock in that case. 5. I'm going to go either side. 4. Yeah, 3. I because I'm looking at my fingers at the same time.
We Are What We Overcome on this occasion features musician Matt McGuinness, improviser Nick Tyler, and psychotherapist Wes Evans. Sit back, enjoy, and remember, it's good to talk.
Hello, and welcome to We Are What We Overcome, a podcast about guys talking about their mental health and stuff in the world. Lovely to see you. It is currently the end of December 2022, and we are catching up in that small gap between Christmas and New Year, the grundle of the festive season, if you will. And this evening, we're going to talk about health, both physical, mental, I guess how they relate together, and stuff along those lines. But before we do that, we'd like to check in and make sure that everyone is cool. I'm going to put down the things that are too close to my hand that I'm instantly playing with. Because I'm at my desk and I have Lego. It's very bad. Hands out of the way. And let's see how folks are. Mr. Wes, how are you? I'm going to have to sit on my hands.
I am well, thank you. Yeah. Talking of health, all right. Not quite as an extreme as a story as other people's, but I did have a period of being quite unwell in the run up to Christmas. Ended up not really being able to breathe very well, so that wasn't very nice. I had some kind of flu thing that turned into a lung chest breathing thing. Basically, seems quite prolonged, but happy to report that I'm well off the back end of that and feeling pretty good physically. Christmas and all that jazz, not too bad, like you say, in that weird in-betweeny bit. What about you, Matt? How are you doing?
I'm good. Breathing's important, by the way, Wes. You realise that, don't you?
Breathing
That is a crucial part of things.
Yes, but I wasn't hospitalised or anything like that.
So I'm just going to say I'm fine, because I think we could chat in a bit about it rather than taking over this bit about what happened to me. But I actually feel quite good today, I think. Pretty mentally speaking, I feel pretty solid.
That's excellent. I also am quite well. I'm enjoying this silent space between Christmas and New Year. We haven't really seen anyone for days, which is kind of my perfect world state. So I'm very happy. I've been just lying on the sofa doing nothing, but dragged myself out to go swimming for the last couple of days. At 7 o'clock this morning, I got out of bed. So I'm super pleased with myself and feeling much better as a consequence. So yeah, really very ready to talk about health.
I know.
Did you get out at 7 this morning to go swimming by changing the clock so it was the time later or something? How did you do it?
No. I decided last night at about 1 o'clock when I went to bed, I was like, I'm going to go swimming tomorrow, and I could go either at lunchtime or I could go first thing in the morning and then do other things with my day, whatever it is that I do normally. And I actually woke up and left the bed at the time that my alarm went off. I was shocked. I haven't been up before. I haven't got out of bed for 11:30 since I broke up for Christmas.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm probably going to fall asleep partway through this.
Good.
That'll be all right. So, health things then.
Yeah.
Should we do Matt's first? Because I feel like Matt has like the best claim to a health story at the moment.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's very relevant.
Yeah, I think. I mean, sure, you couldn't breathe or whatever, but Matt definitely wins on this, I think.
So the short version was that I had a heart attack about 5 weeks ago, I don't know, 27th of November, whatever that is, for 4 weeks, isn't it? There you go. Time flies when you're having fun. And I got out of hospital about 2 weeks ago, and it was quite a shock. Obviously, on the day it was pretty severe. I'm surprised how long it lasted. Actually, it was about 45 minutes. And then, the short version is through a wonderful NHS and drugs and everything else and stuff. I've got a really good prognosis that I should be fine going forward. I've got to take loads of drugs for next year, and then some more forevermore. But and I'm just tired. I mean, I just have this weird thing that in terms of recovery, that I just sometimes, I was out with some friends the other night, and I just said, oh, I need to go home, and it felt really rude, I've got to go, bye. But there's no grace period anymore at the moment. I can't just go, oh, I'm a bit tired, I need to go in about an hour. It's like 10 minutes or whatever.
It's a great card to be able to play.
I
I've
might
got to
keep
go,
it for
guys.
future, yeah.
I had a heart attack. I got to go.
I know it was 10 years ago, but
Yeah, we'll watch out for that one. Ah, man, I'm so glad that you're well and that you've recovered, obviously, and that we are able to have these silly conversations now. Yeah. I was going to ask you, what did it feel like? Not so much what it felt like to have a heart attack, because I've seen those descriptions and that sounds tops. But what did it feel like emotionally?
Yeah.
To be having a heart attack.
I think, it was funny because I think it's going to sound bad, but there was actually quite a lot of benefits to it in some sense in retrospect, because if you take a sort of dispassionate view of it, well, so I mean, there was a point where I thought I was in serious trouble, because it just wasn't getting any better. In fact, it was getting considerably worse. And when you don't know what it was as well, what it is, it makes that even worse. And even if you think it's. And so there was a really, the first sort of few hours, and the first 10 hours of sitting on a trolley in a corridor in a hospital, which we can talk about later, with lots of other people. There was a lot of people in the same corridor who clearly shouldn't have been there, but they had nowhere else to go. They didn't know what they were doing or where they were and stuff. And so all that was horrific, and trying to put yourself in a place where you think it's important they see you, but then there's all these other people, so you're thinking actually they should see them. Do you know what I mean? That was bad. So the first 24 hours was bad, and then the only other time it was bad was when I was going to.
But what you noticed felt a system maybe. Then.
Yeah, and the only other time it was bad was just the sort of few hours before, during, and immediately after the main. Procedures where they tell you, they were immediately going to tell me how bad it was afterwards, how much damage it had done, and what the prognosis was, like in 2 minutes. And I was like, so they can basically have said anything, couldn't they? But it was a good prognosis, and but
it must have been scary.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was scary in a. Well, I was sat on a bench at this event I was at and just couldn't do anything. I was just, it was awful, and it was weird because I was sitting there thinking, this is probably the only time me and an absolute confirmed religious nutter have anything in common, because I was sat there absolutely convinced. I wasn't bothered about the dying bit because, I have no time for sort of, Sagittarius or whatever else you want to call it, or pixies or all that sort of stuff. So I knew for a fact that when I was dead, I was just dead, and that was the end of it. And I was sat there smiling, thinking people who are really religious must feel exactly the same way. If they're completely convinced there's some other fairy land, then they must feel exactly like I do now. And so it wasn't about that. It was just about the kids and friends and and Sam and stuff, and also as well, I'd had lots of plans I've got for the next 2 years, and it just felt like I was being robbed of. Finally had something in mind of what I was going to do and what I wanted to do for a long time. So yeah, it was quite a weird feeling actually.
Where is it left?
Hey?
Where are you left after this now then?
What do you mean, mentally or?
Yeah. Whether it's, I don't know, without kind of leaning into cliches or things that people say, but like as far as perspective goes, or just how.
That's another one that was great. I had somebody come round. They obviously have people, cardiology nurses and people about good health and stuff coming around and chatting with you, and a junior doctor was chatting with me, and she said, lots of people after this, you got to be careful because people re-evaluate what they're doing, and it's almost like a midlife crisis. You suddenly decide that, and I just said, and I didn't want it to come across arrogantly, although I think it did. I had none of that because I thought I'm with the people I want to be with, and the things I've got to plan to do exactly what I want to do. It changes nothing, which you got to be careful, isn't it? Because that can be seen as arrogant, but it wasn't. I felt like it was quite life affirming in a strange way.
Well, that is still something, isn't it? It kind of, like you say, it kind of confirms that things are how you want them to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
quite
that
good.
was that was also the reason why I was upset, because I was worried that I'd got it, and it was gonna get taken away from me
You
right
got
at the
this
last.
stuff ahead of you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's mean. Do you know what the cause of it was? Was it a stress thing? Was it like you've eaten
So,
too much bacon? I don't know what caused a heart
well,
attack. Lots of things.
yeah, the two issues are that one is that I had another good conversation, about how people always want an answer. It's this reason, and quite a lot of the time, that's just nonsense. There isn't any definitive answer. But I mean, it was down to the arthritis I've got, maybe, and it was down to a bit of stress. Um, but that was it. I mean, the guy who did the whole checking what was actually wrong, the main thing in Sheffield, he just said, "Oh, you're in a really fortunate position. This blockage has cleared itself. You've got a very little damage from it, or I can see where it was. Lots of people are walking around this earth and don't know what's wrong with their arteries and the heart stuff. The only factors you've got that mean you'd have another heart attack is the fact that you're 55 and male. So
Well, you'll be
I mean,
56 soon, so you'll be fine.
yeah, well, I was. Do you know what? It must have taken the sales out of me, because I had all these people all around me and lying down on this thing with this, and so they were chatting and saying there's 56 of male, and he said, "Oh, there's nothing you can do about that," and I nearly said, "Isn't that the sort of operation you could offer me so I could, get rid of one of those factors?" But I just
Yeah,
wasn't that
no,
happy.
that's good. Oh, well, I imagine you were not. Yeah, it's not.
It
I
annoyed me
can imagine how
afterwards because I
retrospectively
missed
you
it.
feel quite good about it. Hmm.
Yeah.
Ah, well, I'm sure
But no,
everyone's devastated they missed those gags.
do you know what? It's the time and the place, and it's all about timing, and I missed it.
And your audience,
How
I
do you?
suppose.
Yeah.
That's a shame. So, how do you feel? How do you feel now? You're going to be on a bunch more drugs. Do you feel more mortal? Do you feel more keenly aware of your health state than you did
Uh,
before? I mean,
I'm just worried. I think that's the only thing that bothers. But they told me all this stuff. I'm absolutely knackered. I can be all right for an hour or two, like normal, and then I just suddenly get really tired. And you have to build it up, with more and more exercise, and I'm worried that it's going to happen again. They told me that's exactly what everyone has. There's a session that you could go to for 8 weeks, which I want to start in a week or two's time. It starts on Friday the 13th as well, which I thought was appropriate. Um, and I guess that'll help me a lot, because I mean, I do, you just worry that it's going to happen again, don't you? Although the stuff they've told me, it seems like it's highly unlikely, because I'm on, lots of different drugs that would stop it from happening again, and also there's no real cause to it. But people have been ace. I mean, all them, and we had to cancel the first 6 or 7 shows of the tour, so it's been put back to April. But all the theatres instantly, within about 2, even though they put it out in the press, within a couple of days they came out with a new date, and they're very supportive. And people are just ace, aren't they? I mean, people get a hard deal in the papers, in the press, but generally people are smart, I think.
oh, you seem to come out of this far more optimistic about humanity than usual. This is very good.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, I'll have to change that
We should
one.
have scheduled. We should have scheduled for you for this a long time ago. This sounds
Yeah,
great.
There's something negative. What's going on?
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Maybe I need to have another one to put it back into sync. Yeah,
Took a heart attack, and that's to become upbeat.
Oh my
yeah,
God, this is amazing. It's interesting,
Well,
isn't it?
how could you not be
That this
shaking
period
about
of
that? But I'm glad that you're
this,
okay.
yeah, man, this period of recovery is going to be frustrating, I'm sure, and building back up to it. For me, whenever I mean, I've not been like properly unwell like that, but I've broken plenty of bones, and it's the not being able to do the things that I think I should be able to do that I find most aggravating, and not just aggravating, but I find that enraging. I don't handle that well, not being able to do just whatever I want to do. Like when I broke my hand a couple of years ago, like, well, your hand's in a cast now, you can't go swimming. I was like, but there's nothing else I want to do. You can't type properly, you can't hold a mobile phone in your right hand. And that lack of capacity I found really grated and went on for far too long. Hopefully you'll be a little bit more resilient than I was.
It was interesting actually because the one activity they clearly said not to do until after they started doing the cardio rehab thing is swimming, which I thought, you'd be supported, it'd be all right, but it's in all the literature it just says don't do it until you're signed off that you can do it, which is you can still drive but you can't go swimming.
I guess if you have a heart attack while you're underwater, that's probably not great for getting you out.
Well, it's not great if you had a heart attack whilst you're driving at 70 miles an hour either.
Yeah, but everyone in a car is a murderer anyway. It's fine.
Yeah, that's true.
You just join in. It's fine. Just a different reason. It's strange.
Do you know as well, though,
stressful.
I mean, we could have a rabbit on about the NHS and stuff like that, but I was saying before, I do feel that there's something I'm missing in the hospitals because as phenomenal as they are and the staff are, and they're obviously fighting under-resourced and everything, it's a terrible place to get better, isn't it? Aside from the essential equipment, I don't know whether you find it when you've been in there. I mean, it's just massive grey walls and and disturbance 24 hours a day and really crappy food and and people who are who are
negative places, aren't they?
stressed and the staff who are overworked and it's rubbish, isn't it? I mean, there must be a better way.
I had another friend who was in hospital for a few weeks, not long before Christmas either. He was also not very well, and yeah, a lot of his experience was this is not a place where I can get well. I'm stressed by being here. I can't do anything. I'm surrounded by random strangers and stuff. Yeah, it doesn't feel like a positive experience. Whenever I've been to hospital, it's mostly for A&E from some stupid accident, and even that's stressful. Yeah, so well, stressful because I'm an idiot, so I've hurt myself. But also, like, I don't know if I'm going to get fixed here. Is this going to happen? I've spent 9 hours waiting to be seen for a concussion, during which time I went all the way through the concussion and back out the other side, which was interesting to do in a waiting room. And you just, I don't know, nothing about the place seems conducive to becoming well, which is really strange. As we used to have like hospice care and stuff, but that doesn't feel like the same thing either.
And you're stuck in a room with the only reason why you're in the room with 7 other people, the only connection you got is the fact that they've got roughly the same thing wrong with them. But you're stuck in there 24 hours a day with people, and it must be the same for them, for me, for anyone. You're obviously trying to make the most of it, and you're trying to. I spent, which I'm sure neither of you believe, I spent the first 3 days not trying to respond to somebody who was opposite me, who kept saying things generally, but it's just, I suppose his sort of ridiculous proclamations about how he knew more than the specialist nurses and doctors and stuff. I mean, it just got to a point where I had to say so because it was just pissing me off. I mean, it's just a ridiculous thing to say, but it isn't great, is it? You just sat there like trying to contain all this stuff inside you for 3 days whilst getting better, listening to this. And then you got the quandary I had. If I start going off on one, it's not fair on everybody else. Plus, one thing I did think was I need to just not be so concerned about the minutiae of life anymore because it's ridiculous. And so here's a prime example of someone it's going to do no good. So I lasted 3 days, and then he didn't listen to me, but I felt better anyway.
And then they came and tranquilized you for everyone else's peace and quiet.
No, they were all right because he was
guy with a gun.
I mean, he was saying things like, isn't it terrible? These people, they go to university and they learn loads of stuff, and then they come out and tell you stuff like they know better than you. I was like, that's the point of university, Nobby. That's the whole fucking point.
Well, no one likes an expert. That's been well established, hasn't it? Why would you want someone's expertise when you're in a situation where you require it? Oh man.
Yeah. But yeah,
that is strange.
But that And that first 12 hours of sat on a hospital trolley in a corridor, head to toe with about 30 or 40 other people, with one doctor running up and down trying to decide who was next. That's not good, is it? I mean, it was like something you see off a film. It's just rubbish.
I've had far
I
too
think
many
that's
family members.
it's
Oh,
well.
go on.
Do you know? That's one of the positives I'll take from it, because obviously I get involved in some politics, but now when it comes up about the NHS, I do feel like I've had first-hand experience of two different hospitals, both in the same position. So people can say any smart ass comments they want about this, that, and the other, and we're 14% above this or 20% below that. Makes no odds, is it? And the saddest thing was listening at like sort of 3 a.m. to 3 or 4 people at different ends of the corridor who didn't know who they were, what they were, and why they were there in the first place. And they quite clearly were, forget that the actual corridor, but the hospital itself, they weren't in it, shouldn't have been in that hospital. And, you know, we should look after them better than that. It's just ridiculous.
Sounds like you've had quite an experience. I've had several family members in hospital for prolonged chunks of time, and obviously it sucks. I think it's the powerlessness that I think always got me as a visitor. That while you're there, you're not in charge of what's going on. You suddenly lost all agency with your life, because you're going to lie in this bed for X number of days. We're going to feed you. We're going to come and talk to you. We're going to poke you with stuff on our schedule, not on your schedule. People can come see you at certain times. Maybe we can't tell you when you're getting out. We can't necessarily tell you when you're getting better. And I think that's the bit that blew my mind when I've been to see people in hospital, where you have no control, no control over your life. And I think that kind of disempowerment is really striking. It's also striking how quickly people become kind of institutionalized to it, where you get used to being woken up at 5 a.m. to have someone, change your drip or your catheter or whatever. And that you're going to have 4 hours of crappy sleep before the lights turn on, and there's going to be loads of noise. And I found that quite fascinating to watch how even my dad, who is not unlike Matt in being involved in far too many things, constantly doing a billion things, has a billion ideas and a billion things he wants to do at any second of the day. When he was in hospital for a couple of months, he calmed down so much, so fast. And it was amazing. It's like they drugged him, and maybe they did. Maybe they should have done. But he suddenly weirdly adapted to this life that is the absolute antithesis of anything that he normally does. And it was quite freaky to see. Did not make me at all comfortable. Although, yeah, it's probably better for everybody else that he did adjust to it. Yeah, weird.
They were very on with the whole mental health thing, though. I mean, they had a few different people coming around chatting about how it affected you and what what routes there were available for support and all that stuff. Because I guess for a lot of people, having a heart attack and then going out afterwards, and then I think the bit in hospital, it feels supported, doesn't it? It feels like we've said this before, it feels like you're special because you're in a ward and everyone's looking after you and stuff. But then once you go home, you're just back to the same old, but you've had a heart attack. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think that must be quite difficult for people to deal with mentally. On top of the fact of thinking, is this it? Can I still think I might do the 4-minute marathon or whatever it is?
Well, there's that. Plus, there's how much you've freaked everybody else out.
Yeah.
Not I don't mean that in a mean way, but I'm sure Sam and the kids and everybody else were somewhat freaked out by the whole thing. We were when we heard about it. Not obviously as close and nothing we can do about it, but it's still like, what? And that impact on the impact of our health on others is a strange thing. Knowing that what we do or what we don't do can have such a direct impact on how other people feel and on and on their lives. As you said earlier, I just got everything sorted, and it's like, oh man, it's all going to get taken away now. That's not. It's the same for everybody else
weird
as well.
to see, actually. And it sometimes people can be a bit funny about messages and stuff, but I got so many messages in the first sort of 48 hours or a few days. It was ace because it was a really crappy time, and so constantly people writing a decent message was good, but you're right, it was seeing Sam and the effect it had on air was quite hard to take, actually,
Mm.
because in the back of your mind you're thinking, if he had died, it would be the effect would have been, 20 times worse or whatever else it was, and you're sort of seeing it firsthand, aren't you? And there is jack all you can do about it, because if you lie there in hospital and you're rigged up to a load of stuff, you can't really say, don't worry, it'll be fine, because you're like...
It's not a compelling argument at that point, is it?
No.
Yeah, everything's fine.
Well, I guess
Yeah, you don't look
all
fine.
joking aside, underneath you were wondering if it was going to be fine at one point, weren't you?
Yeah, no, I was generally... I mean, I wrote... I was worried, because I wanted to speak to the kids and to Sam, but I didn't want to worry them, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity. I was thinking that, this is you don't know what's going to happen in the next bit, so I hate things that are left unsaid, and I just wanted one last time to be clear with them, what I thought of them, and where we were, and so that was difficult to deal with, because I didn't want to. I was thinking, oh, am I hamming it up? Am I really in that bad a place, and am I going to make them even more worried? And so yeah, that was hard, and so I wrote a lot of songs, so that and you know, uh, um, I suppose that was a way of doing it. That'd be a
So we're
cheery
talking
album.
well, yeah. I'm just going to say we're thinking we'll talk about health and how physical health and mental health are very connected, and I suppose themes that have popped up throughout this conversation so far have been stuff around how anxiety and worry related to health, or how your health changing can change your perspective and outlook and things like that. But I suppose it's also about kind of like health and, well, the prospect of death, I suppose, as well, is what we're talking a little bit about here as well, aren't we?
Yes, I suspect you're right, because it's always the unspoken but like logical conclusion. Like, if you're not healthy, then you're probably going to die. It seems to be like the end of that road, doesn't it? And
Mm.
I must admit, I remember in my 20s, I was like, before I'm 30, I'd like to get into a routine where I get up in the morning and I do a bunch of like sit-ups and push-ups, and like really good like basic maintenance routine that will keep me healthy, and will make me live longer or whatever. I thought the same thing when I turned 40, and I've still not yet put such a thing in place. But it's there's always something like at the back there that we need somehow to
You've
get
got
it together.
7 to go swimming, Nick. That's not that bad, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
know
not
it's
bad
very
at all.
rare though. It's very rare. No, and yeah, I'm tolerably fit. I could definitely be fitter, but I'm also very aware that I've got really bad asthma, and I'm already on a bunch of drugs for like blood pressure and asthma and stuff. Is it 4 different asthma drugs? Yeah, something like that. 2 for blood pressure and stuff. And you're like, oh, this already doesn't look great. At what, 44? It's like, oh, what's that? Another 10 years? I don't know. And for me, like having those, I take a fistful of tablets every day and a whole bunch of inhalers, and those I find are always an interesting reminder of not necessarily mortality, but of the frailty of this like puff paste of skin and bone that
Mm.
barely fits together properly. And I feel like, I think when you were saying that you'd had breathing problems earlier this month, with whatever weird flu RSI cold thing you ended up with, it's like, yeah, I know that doesn't feel good, because that's like one of the most basic properties that we have, a little bit like Matt's heart beating properly. Being
Mm.
able to breathe feels like a really critical function, and it's weird when you don't have it.
Yeah, no, you're right, and it's like you say, just I suppose it just gets me thinking about the things you could take for granted and stuff as well. So like Matt, you were talking about suddenly just think I need to go home, because you're knackered or you've had
Mm.
enough, you can't take any more, kind of thing. And it's different, but in a similar kind of way. Like when I was in the middle of that kind of illness, I couldn't walk around very easily at all, and it made my mind go forward into like the future almost, and think like, this is what it could be pretty soon if I don't take care of myself, kind of thing, So not to sound dramatic or anything, but
It is an insight in one way, isn't it?
well, yeah, it is, and I suppose just what you were talking about, Nick, about these kind of the things that can remind you, about our frailty and spur on these little, often temporary spells of wanting to take better care of yourself and stuff. I mean, we're in the in between of Christmas and New Year, aren't we? And it won't be until there's a spate of New Year resolutions and all that kind of stuff. A lot of which usually are about kind of taking better care of oneself and stuff like that. But that's for another topic.
I was because they ask me all those questions about stuff, and I thought, they obviously hear stuff from people, and it's a lie or it's a, understatement, like how much do you drink and stuff, and so so they asked me that, and I said, oh, I drink too much, and he said, what is that? I said, I don't really know, but it's we sort of had a guess and stuff, and he said, oh, do you need do we need to give you some like drugs so that you don't have the shakes or something? And I said, no, there are quite a lot of times when I don't drink, I don't have a problem with it. And so eventually he went away from that, and it was fine. There was no problems. And I was sat there the next day, a new guy came in, he sat down, really honest guy. And so he said, they did the same thing with him. How much do you drink? And he said, maybe we should go, I don't really know, maybe we should go via categories. And the guy went, what do you mean? He said, well, gin wise, let's talk about gin first. That's too much. If you've
That's
got
an organized mind. Oh, yes. It is funny, those lies, isn't it? The things that we feel obliged to hide as well as to reveal with those things. It's strange, isn't it? I wonder what the overall effect is of those little moments where we recognize our frailty and mortality, partly because we so rarely do anything about it. Yeah, like you said, where it's like, this Christmas I've been looking at kettlebells in Argos. I don't know why. I got no interest. But I've obviously gone into this idea, I could be a bit healthier if I did like resistance training, which I'm plainly never going to do. But I could buy a lump of cast iron and use it to hold a door open for sure. Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
God.
Wow. Is it good? Do you use it, or does it hold the door open?
Say that again, sorry. I missed it because my earphone.
Do you use it, or does it just hold the door open?
I mean, I have used it. I did a rep then to pick it up to show you.
No, that looked good. You did the whole like wrist rotation thing. Supported it nicely. I've been watching the videos. But I am fascinated by the idea that we then don't do anything about it. That's the bit that I find fascinating. It makes sense that we grasp
weird?
mortality occasionally, but
Yeah. What is
we
that
then just
in that means that everything feels so crucial, important, profound, and jarring one minute, but then, I mean, maybe we're being a little bit too generalistic. Maybe that's not for everybody, but I can think of several times throughout my life where I've been quite struck by this kind of feeling that we're talking about. Made big changes at certain times as well, and sometimes a reflection of something that's happened to me and sometimes to someone around me, in regards to health and things like that. But yeah, what is that? Why is that only temporary? Maybe it's
fascinating, though, isn't it?
I
assume it's something.
Go on, you.
I was going to say, I assume it's something to do with the way that we're propelled forward through time, and those feelings don't last in the same way that, or at least they can't keep up with the constant pace of change, or at least just maintaining your life. Like I want to get up at 6 every day and do 1,000 push-ups. I might manage that. Well, I might manage 3 push-ups and do it once, but maybe there's too much change. All too often you catch up with well, actually, I need to be at work at 9, so really I need 7 hours sleep.
Quite kind of routine and regimented with things like that, aren't they? Some people really do take care of themselves.
I might just be shit at it. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just really bad at this.
Shit. Maybe that's what.
I think you're right. We're just not good enough at peopling. What were you going to say, Matt?
No, sorry, just to them about you. You also need to be fair on yourself. I mean, you go on your bike a lot more than I do, and you do quite a bit of stuff, Nick. And you sort of,
Oh no, I know.
I guess that's the sort of reflection. I mean, I really hope I keep some of the perspective that I don't know if it's perspective, but
Well, yeah, all right. Whether it's perspective or not, what is it that you want to keep? I know on the one hand you said, well, there wasn't any of this big striking, this, that, and the other, but at the same time, there have been little nuggets of things that you have said.
yeah.
So like,
I just in terms of
things up, like, what do you want to keep?
I guess I mean I think that the focus on people's. I mean, I've always been more people interested than anything else, But I guess that and not being so bothered by just the stuff that surrounds everything. I mean, I'm not being just so dismissive of it, like oh, I don't have to bother with all that. I'm into much bigger things, but just letting it pass you by, things that you just can't be dealing with. And I felt it creep on as I got older. Certain things have annoyed me more and more, and I was just thinking, why? I mean, there was a guy in the hospital who didn't even give up smoking, even though he had a mask on with oxygen on, and he went out, and you could get annoyed about that. But what's the point? Maybe we should, respect how much of a hardcore smoker is. Nothing's going to stop him from having a fag.
That is dedication. Something very similar stopped me smoking. I did the census one year, like went out and did the things. I would see an old lady who was like wet smoking a cigarette, like the whole thing was wet, and she just inhaled the whole thing in one rasping breath, and it was just soaking wet. And I just watched this. I was like, I don't think I want to smoke anymore.
but why?
It's one of the worst things I've ever seen.
But you could, you can take things away from that, can't you? You can either get really annoyed about it, you can make it help yourself like you have, or you can just accept the fact there is nothing you can do about it. Don't get annoyed about it. I mean, obviously, clearly, don't follow that example, but whatever.
Sounds like it's been another sort of good experience for you in your quest to reprioritize, which you've been on for a long time.
I feel like I have.
Reprioritizing and like trying to get a sensible balance for how you see things in the world. So yeah, good on you for having a heart attack, giving something else a try.
Yeah, I recommend it to anyone.
We are rapidly approaching our out of time.
Yeah, feels like we could actually pick up this topic again and spend some more time with it, to be honest. Matt's
I
taking
think
it.
we probably should.
Heart attack.
Bloody Matt.
But yeah.
Big showy news.
Now, thank you for speaking about your experience.
Right.
It's
good to chat with you guys about everything.
Yeah, maybe we should revisit this then and think a little bit more about the relationship between physical health, mental health, etc. But if anyone else has any ideas, any listeners want to chuck some ideas our way for the email or the socials, I guess.
Maybe we could do next month live from a hospital A&E department. That'd be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, on the corridors.
If we could find a space.
Matt can just do as a walk through the hospital. This is where I was for a week, and I was very sad. And then here was where a man was who made me angry.
Yep, I had some ice cream on this day, though. Not too bad.
Ice cream? Are you joking?
You didn't get ice cream?
No, I got morphine. That was almost as good. Probably even better.
Nice. That's very
cool. My favourite meal was morphine and a chip pussy, which was really strange for a cardio ward. But welcome, I have to say.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, well.
Until next time.
Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself and each other.
Bye.
If you've been affected by anything that we've talked about tonight, that's cool. We were kind of hoping you would be. If you haven't been affected by anything tonight, then that's great too. You're probably fine. Of course, if you say you're fine, there's a good chance you aren't. So you might also have been affected. And if you've been affected before, you probably will be again. Please talk to someone. It can get better, and together we can survive. We are what we overcome.
This poor little boy, grounded by the sun, failure by his side for some big stride.